Okay, welcome to Film is Lit, everybody. It is Wednesday, September the 23rd. We are going to begin our conflict film module. Today, we will be watching the film Minority Report to talk about conflict. Reminder, 2 assignments due this week. The reflection essay for character and the matrix will be due on Friday at 11:59 p.m. And then you have a discussion post-assignment that is due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. The discussion post-assignment is related to the conflict essay module. So obviously, write the essay first, then get to your discussion post. Cool? All righty. So let's get into conflict. Okay. We're going to be discussing the 7 forms of conflict that are most seen in film and literature. We're going to be talking some examples of them as well. I'll ask you to contribute some examples of films and literature that you've encountered throughout your life that you think represent these different forms or contain these different forms of conflict in it. We'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll start watching Minority Report. So here comes the lecture. Conflict is the bread and butter of drama. Okay, without conflict, there is no drama. Most of the time, without conflict, there is no story. The more the audience can be involved in the conflicting situations of a character, the problems can be created for the protagonist and make them overcome those one by one, the more successful the story is. So essentially, a lot of conflict typically equals a more successful story. We have more that we can latch onto as a viewer. We care more when we see our protagonist go through strife, when they go through harm, when they have challenges, when they fail, right? Because we're rooting for them. They're the hero of the story. They have the focus. So the more conflict that they encounter, the more likely the audience is to feel something, feel some empathy for the character, to root for them. In addition, any level of conflict or drama starts appearing, I'm sorry, let me start that sentence over. Any conflict, any level of conflict or drama that appears redundant, repetitive, or lukewarm, unless the stakes are raised in some way, can typically fall short, for lack of a better word. So the main character has to experience a lot of conflict, but that conflict has to be meaningful. It has to be helping out their character arc in some way, or progressing the plot in some way. Conflict for the sake of conflict seldom builds that bridge between the film's characters and you, the audience, as far as feeling empathy or caring about them. So conflict is a fundamental concept that allows literature and film to reflect on the human condition, because it not only is presented in daily life, but it also stimulates a basic human psychology, which is fight or flight. Okay, conflict innately does this to us. It gives us that response of fight or flight, or freeze, which is a new thing that's come into it. The storyteller needs to keep raising the tension and thickening the action to make sure that the collective attention and interest of the audience stays within the film and stays on the character. Again, building that empathy, rooting for them. Let's see. Okay, we'll skip that. Okay, so what you really need to take away from this lecture is that conflict is the driving force of drama. Without conflict, there almost always is no story. There's almost no reason for the audience to latch on to anything, to root for the main character, to really care about anything that's going on within the confines of the story. Hopefully at this point, you're already kind of thinking about some of the films and novels or stories, literature that you've encountered. And maybe you're already starting to think about what happens if I take out the major conflict that happened in that story. Is it still interesting? Is it still worth digesting? Is it still worth considering the characters and their situations? Is it still representative of life? right? Art is a representation of life. Life is full of conflict. So removing that conflict is not only weakening the potential success of that story, but it's also not an accurate representation rather of life. So knowing what you know, imagine a film and remove the conflict. Take just a moment. Maybe it's your favorite film, maybe it's the last thing that you saw. Remove the major conflict that happens. Suppose you have Batman with no villains. He's finally beaten all the villains, right? Or maybe there never was any. Is it still worth caring about a guy that runs around in a rubber bat suit? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, we'll go on with that. So let's look now at the 7 different types of conflict that we can encounter in literature. I'm going to share screen with you all so you can see it as we go through it. Oops. Memento, didn't quite get that right. Okay. Okay. And give me just one more second. I will enlarge the text. What do we think, people? Is that big enough? Can we see it okay? Nice. Okay, so let's go through this. The first form of conflict is person versus person. The definition of this is pitting one character against another. Some examples of that in film are films like Tombstone, Western, lots of shooting, lots of person versus another person, dueling, and so forth. Batman always has a supervillain he has to defeat, person versus person. Twilight, we have groups versus groups here. That also plays into the person versus person model. So you have the vampires versus the werewolves, right? I've seen it, but I'm not a big fan of it, okay? Mean Girls. Sometimes it's a person versus a group, right? Still person versus person because we're dealing with character versus character, right? So that could be one character versus one other character. That could be a group of characters versus another group of characters. That could be one character versus a group of characters. Some examples from literature, think Sherlock Holmes, think Agatha Christie novels, right? Lots of mystery novels take this person versus person approach. What do you all have? What are some examples that you know of person versus person? It could be from films, it could be from literature. What do you got? Reactions, get it.
From literature, person versus person, I think Romeo and Juliet would be a good example.
Okay, yeah, we have the 2 clashing families. Devin, if you would please in the future to react, similar to raising your hand. Okay?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No worries, you're good. But yeah, good example, absolutely. Larissa, I saw you react. What do you got?
Double Jeopardy.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Double Jeopardy.
Ah, yes, the Ashley Judd film. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a character who is accused of murdering her husband, goes to jail for it, finds a loophole that you can't be charged for the same crime twice, goes and kills her husband. Absolutely person versus person. Good film too. Excuse me, good film as well. Anybody else, person versus person from film or literature? I know I took all the good examples, right? LOL. You all know of some. Come on, let's hear what you got. Yes, Wyatt. We can't hear you, bud. Are you muted? Weird. Try using the chat feature, Wyatt. Somebody else, as we wait on Wyatt to include his in the chat. Person versus person. Larissa again.
Would Avatar be one?
At moments. At
Okay.
moments. Overall, that would fall under a different form of conflict for the major conflict of that film. Okay, we'll get to that here in just a few. But at times, yeah, it could be. And that's something else that you will notice, people. For instance, in the film that we are watching for this unit, all 7 forms of conflict exist within it. All right. Now, there will be a major conflict, right? The big thing that the protagonist has to overcome, we'll call that the major conflict. That's probably going to be one or the other, right? It will be one of these 7, but within the plot, you'll see all 7 forms of conflict in Minority Report. This isn't unusual for any story to have more than one form of conflict. Let's see if we got Wyatt's response yet. Might need to get to the chat. Okay. Murder on the Orient Express. Okay. If you would, Wyatt, why don't you put a little bit more in the chat about that? What was the person versus person conflict there? Shameful. I haven't seen it. Anybody else? Okay. As we wait on Wyatt's response, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next form of conflict, okay? The next one is person versus self. The character battles themselves between competing desires or selves, typically one good, one evil, okay? So the character's main conflict is coming from within. It's coming from within. So some characters that display this type of conflict: Wolverine from the X-Men, Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars saga, Jules Winfield from Pulp Fiction, some examples from literature: Hamlet, Call of the Wild by Jack London. What do y'all got? Person versus self. The character is essentially fighting an internal struggle. They need to change or develop, or they are deficient in some way, or they are stuck between good and evil. Person versus self. Yes, Emily.
Wouldn't Tangled be one, like the Disney movie?
I haven't seen it. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's where like her mom traps her into a like her house, and she's battling like whether or not she should leave it or not and separate herself from her mom or go be with like this man.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a little person versus person with the mother coming into play, but the contemplation about whether or not to leave. Person versus self. Good, good. Somebody else. Yes, Daylon. You are muted, my friend.
Frozen.
Okay, Frozen, yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
I mean, all I know is that at one point the ice lady leaves because she's scared of hurting everybody.
Okay.
I've only seen it once.
Shameful as well. I haven't seen it either. I know it's like it's become a cultural talking point, so I feel like I need to see it. But I honestly, I can't say based on that description, and obviously I haven't watched it myself. So yeah, not sure. Wyatt? Still can't hear you. Let's use the chat. Summer.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph. Okay, tell us a little bit about that. Okay, now we can't hear you anymore. What is going on? Mute yourself and unmute yourself, Summer. Okay, use the chat feature, Summer. Wyatt responded with Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Excellent example of person versus self. Absolutely.
Mike,
Oh. Wyatt,
did it work? Am I working?
yes, we can hear you now. Great. Excellent.
Yeah, my previous one was a murder mystery,
Right.
and it's basically Hercule is the detective's name,
Mhm.
and they're on a confined space. And then Gollum, just because it's literally him fighting against two aspects of himself.
Very good.
That's
Yes. Golem is a fantastic example of person versus self, right? And specifically, if we look at the long form, all three stories, all three books that go into that, we get to see that progression as well. So it's pretty neat. Golem's a good example of it. Anybody else? Okay, moving on to the next one. Person versus fate. A character or group battles an inevitable destiny. Some examples, The Matrix, Happy Gilmore. Again, Happy, he's a golfer, right? He's not a hockey player. No matter how hard he tries, he's a golfer. Final Destination, Can't Escape Death. From literature, The Odyssey. Odysseus is on a quest of the inevitable. What do y'all got? Wyatt.
also gonna pull from Greek myth, the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice.
Okay, tell us a little bit about it.
Eurydice tragically dies. Orpheus basically tries to defy fate by going to the afterlife to get her back, is the quick
Okay.
explanation.
Very good. Very good example. Devin, I saw your hand up. Appreciate your name.
Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, Infinity War. Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Thanos says it is inevitable so many times, and I feel like the Avengers are battling the fate that Thanos is going to snap his fingers.
Does he?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Great. Trisha. You had your hand up.
Brave.
Yeah. Sorry?
Brave.
Brave. Okay, another kids movie, right? Shameful. I haven't seen any of the kids movies, y'all. Tell us a little bit about Brave.
The main character literally tries to go to a witch and actually change fate.
Okay. Does she? Is she able to?
I think so.
That sounds kind of
Solid yes and no. I've seen that movie.
okay. Well, if the fate that the person is battling cannot be overcome, then it's person versus fate. If they can overcome it, then it's probably person versus self. Can you all see that line in the sand a little bit clearer now? Excellent. Cool. Anybody else? Person versus fate? Moving along. Next one, person versus nature. A character battles an unapathetic force and elements of nature. Some examples of that from film, 127 Hours. The hiker who goes on alone gets caught in a rock. Into the Wild, similar story about a person going off into the wilderness alone to live a simpler life and has a lot of problems. Castaway, Tom Hanks, alone on an island. Some examples from literature, Moby Dick. What do y'all got? Yes, Daylon. You're muted, my friend.
The movie Earthquake.
Tell us a little bit about it.
There's this movie Earthquake, and these people, they gotta. Oh, hold up, I got a call. Let me cancel that. You still hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. There's a movie Earthquake, and they're trying to get out of town before the earthquake happens, which is being caused by fracking, and they're expected to have a 10-point earthquake.
Okay, very good.
Which
Sounds like it fits.
they get.
Sounds like it fits. I saw Emily react. What do you got?
7 meters down.
7 meters down. Good. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's like a girl is in the ocean and she gets trapped in the ocean, and she's like battling nature, like sharks and weather and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Very good example. Jason, I saw you up.
The movie Twister.
Twister, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, basically, they're a bunch of storm chasers that chase tornadoes, and all of a sudden, they got to battle to save their lives from tornadoes.
Very good. Excellent example. Devin, I saw you react. Why?
An example of literature, the book Hatchet.
Hey, good. Tell us a little bit about it.
This kid goes to meet like his dad in Canada, and then his mom gives him a hatchet on the way there, and his plane crashes in the middle of nowhere in a forest, and he has to survive with just a hatchet.
Excellent. Very good example. Wyatt, you're next. Then I saw Larissa and then Daylon.
He took my literary, so I'll go with Apollo 13, that movie.
Okay.
Would that work in that instance?
Yes and no. I mean, space would be nature, because it is.
It said force.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just reading and it said apathetic force and elements of nature, so I wasn't sure if
Right.
that would go in.
It would fit. Yes, space would fit. However, is that the major conflict of the film? Not quite.
Things keep going wrong about it, which makes it inapplicable, so I'm not sure what that
Well,
would fall into.
here's the thing about a film like Apollo 13. This is another good example of multiple forms of conflict existing together. Space isn't helping anything, but that's not the major form of conflict in that film. Space does cause some conflict in it because it's different than the atmosphere of Earth, right? And it's obviously not a place where a human can live. So it does provide some conflict. However, they're in machines and they're using technology that's supposed to be able to withstand this. The machines and the technology are what are causing the major form of conflict in that. That's what is making the conflict with space more likely. Okay, so Apollo 13, yes and no. Larissa, I think you were next.
Life of Pi.
Okay, tell us a little bit about it.
From what I can remember, it's this boy who was on a ship that had like animals in it, and then a storm came through, and then he was like the only survivor in the ocean, but he also had like a tiger with him until like he got in. He was basically in the ocean until his little boat got to land.
Okay. Sounds like at times there's some person versus nature occurring there. Good. I think Daylon was next. Is that correct?
The movie Mine on Netflix. It's like a soldier gets his foot stuck on a mine, and he's stuck there for like 3 days or so, waiting on his troops, and he has to deal with the desert heat and then the storms and then all these animals, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he can't move.
Sounds like we got some person versus nature occurring in it. It doesn't sound like it's the main form of conflict for that story, but it's definitely like Apollo 13, not helping anything, right? It's causing more conflict. So good example. Anybody else? Person versus nature. Was there anybody that reacted that I forgot to call on or I missed somehow?
There was someone in chat.
Let me check the chat. Thank you. The movie 2012, the world is ending and they have to run from it to survive. Okay, this is from Ashley. Ashley, is your mic working? Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, 2012 is basically like the world is ending. So like there's like huge like tsunamis and like wildfires and stuff like that. So I felt like that was like person versus nature.
Okay, yeah, there's elements of person versus nature in that. It sounds like good. Okay, last call for person versus nature. Moving along to the next one. Go ahead.
I noticed further down we have person versus supernatural. It feels like it's supernatural how they treat the shark, but Jaws, would that be more nature in that aspect?
We'll get to that whenever we. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be person versus nature because that shark in the film is not enhanced in any way. It's not like Deep Blue Sea or the Meg. Well, I guess the Meg is technically supposed to be unenhanced as well. But as long as it is a product of nature, then yes, animals would fit in
Okay.
as well. However, if they've been modified, that it wouldn't quite fit. Summer, did you have something? I saw you just react.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Excellent.
Cool. For person versus nature, does it have to be one character or can it be a group of characters?
It can be a group of characters, but
Okay.
the force of antagonism must come from nature in order for it to be described as person versus nature. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Moving along. Moving along. Okay, next we have person versus society. A character or group battling injustices within their society. Some film examples: The Hunger Games, Inglorious Bastards, the movie Milk about Harvey Milk in the 70s, San Francisco. I believe he's a city planner. I'm not 100% sure on what his job was. I should know that. Some examples from literature: Animal Farm. What do y'all got? Wyatt.
There's a movie and a book, but The Giver series.
Good. The Giver series. Tell us a little bit about it.
Quick synopsis is there's a society where
The
there's no
conflict.
more war.
Wyatt, just
Yeah.
the conflict. Tell us about it.
No one basically has emotions. One person is allowed to, and he thinks everyone else should once he kind of knows the joys of it
Mhm.
and also downfalls, and just trying to get that stuff back to people. It's kind of the quick way I can describe it.
Right, yeah, that's the main character's pool. That's what they're supposed to do, right? But the form of conflict there comes from the overregulated society that this character lives in, right?
Yeah, because he's trying to get other people to do it, and that's not what he's supposed to do.
Right, right. I mean, in the society of the giver is a very regulated one. I mean, even down to the weather. So yes, that would work. Daylon.
42.
42. Yes, this is the Jackie Robinson film. Tell us a little bit about it.
He's just battling racism throughout the whole thing.
Okay.
But he's a baseball player. He's wanting to become the first black baseball player in the MLB, which he does.
Mhm.
Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. For real. Big loss there for sure. 2020 needs to chill out. But yeah, 42 absolutely works. Absolutely. We have our main character fighting racism at literally every level, every step of his journey, right? But he gets there. He overcomes that force of antagonism. Trey, did I see you react? What do you got, my friend?
Will Fahrenheit 451 work?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Tell us about it.
I just like the firefighters, they burn books.
Mhm.
And then the whole society is brainwashed because they don't books is it.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Yes, a brainwashed, overregulated society. I believe I saw Jason and then Devin.
Remember the Titans.
Sorry?
Remember the Titans?
Okay, good. Tell us about it.
Basically, they're a bunch of football players getting together, but there's racial injustice, and they get together in the end, and
Yeah, they're the first integrated team in their area, right?
Yeah.
So they're battling racism from other teams. They're battling backlash in their own communities, right? They themselves, the players on the team, have reservations about being on an integrated team. So yeah. Totally. Because again, we're dealing with a concept of society, racism. Devin, what do you got?
I kind of feel like any anti-utopia film or literature would kind of fit in this category, and
Okay.
Divergent would be an example of that as well.
Divergent. Okay, cool. Tell us more.
So I can't really remember the characters' names, but this girl, she basically fights from being oppressed by the society that's already oppressed, and she kind of frees them with help of others.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I believe I saw Wyatt react. What do you got?
V for Vendetta just popped in my mind.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about V for Vendetta.
V is more of an anarchist, and he's fighting against a Big Brother society. and he's trying to dismantle that corrupt system. And that's more the novel version, but yeah.
Very good,
way to
very
say it.
good. If you haven't read the graphic novel, do that as well. Anybody
It's
else?
solid.
Alan Moore is a crazy person, but he's awesome. Anybody else? Person versus society. All right, moving along to person versus supernatural, not supernational, that's weird, slash person versus the unknown. Okay, so here a character or group battles an unhuman entity. Unhuman entity being the thing to note here, okay? So some examples, The Shining, these are film examples. The Shining, The Conjuring, It. We see this a lot in horror, ghost, possession type films. Some examples from literature, War of the Worlds, Aliens will fall into this as well. So what do you all have? What are some examples? Wyatt's already on it, then we got Devin.
This one falls into several of the categories, but part of this movie, Pan's Labyrinth, literally is an entire section dealing with supernatural, and I probably should have brought it up more with fate, because it has a prophecy to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another film displaying many different types of conflict. However, there is plenty of supernatural conflict that occurs there as well. Very good.
Yeah.
Devin and then Jason. What do you got, Devin?
Clash of the Titans.
Okay, Clash of the Titans. Very good. Tell us a little bit about it.
Perseus basically has to fight this kraken from killing the princess, and he then proceeds to not only fight the kraken but also Hades.
Nice. Very good. Kraken, Hades, supernatural. Excellent. Jason.
Independence Day.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about Independence Day.
Basically, aliens come out of nowhere. Earth has got to be saved by us humans, and we go and fight the aliens.
Nice. Excellent. Larissa and then Summer. What do you got, Larissa?
Bird Box.
Bird Box. Okay. The Netflix
Yeah.
stuff, right? Yeah. Tell us about Bird Box.
So, it happened quite rapidly where people just suddenly started killing themselves. And if you look at this certain thing that seems invisible, but it kind of like entraps you and make you think that you see something that's not there. And then it makes you hear things so that you follow it. And yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. And it turns out in the end that this is a supernatural entity, right? This is not a human doing these things. Okay. Very good. Summer.
I think it's more of a minor conflict than the major conflict.
Okay.
The Maze Runner series. A group of people.
Is that what you said?
The Maze Runner.
Okay. Cool. Tell us about it.
So these group of people are trapped in this place, and the only way to escape is through a maze. But in the maze, there are these unhuman entities that kill them and stop them from leaving.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Anybody else? There's several of you here who haven't contributed any examples from film or literature of any of these forms of conflict. Would you like the opportunity to talk about person versus the supernatural? Moving along to our final form of conflict, person versus technology, also known as person versus machinery. A character or group battles unemotional and unsympathetic technology or machinery that no longer needs humans to function or is working towards that end goal of machine superiority. So some examples, we have the Terminator series, I, Robot, 2001, A Space Odyssey, sorry. We have the movie Her, the Spike Jonze film. The Matrix, we just finished watching that. That fits in this as well. What do y'all got? Devin, and then Dayline.
I was just about to say the third Matrix, especially.
Okay. Okay. Third
Yeah.
Matrix, especially, we get to see more of the Matrix itself. So good. Dayla.
The movie Mother.
Mother, tell us about it.
It's this movie on Netflix. Well, I don't know if it still is or not, but basically this robot is taking the place as this little girl's mother, and she's just brainwashing her the whole time, telling her that I haven't seen it in a long time. I think it's like she's brainwashing her, telling her that everybody's dead or something like that.
Okay.
I'm trying to take over, basically.
Gotcha. We got a machine doing these things, though. That's the thing. So I saw Emily, and then Ashley, and then Wyatt, and then Devin, and then Sean. So I'm gonna try to keep all that in order. Emily, what do you got?
I don't know if this is right, but E.T.
Okay. How did you get to that? Tell us a little bit about it.
I don't know. I just saw the robot thing and it just reminded me of it. I couldn't tell you what the movie's about anymore, but
Okay.
I don't know.
E.T. would probably fit more under person versus society, because E.T., the alien, is not necessarily the source of conflict. It's the reaction to E.T. that's causing a lot of the conflict in that story. Now, E.T. might experience a little bit of person versus technology in that the craft he's in crashes, right? But that would be a minor source of detail. That would, I'm sorry, of conflict. That would really just explain him being on the planet Earth where he's not necessarily supposed to be. Make sense? Okay, Ashley.
I think Wally would be one of them because, like, the main spaceship, like, the main one that controls everything, like, he doesn't want the humans to, like, think on their own or do things on their own. That's why they got, like, really fat. And then once, like, the what is it called? Like, the pilot guy, like, once he wants to get the control back, like, he was like, no, like, you need me, like, and stuff like that. That's why I think it's
Okay.
person technology.
Sounds like there's an element of it in the story. Good. I think, was Sean next? What do you got, Sean?
I'm good. I was also gonna say Wally.
Okay, for a different reason?
Nah, basically the same reason. Just everyone relies on technology. So like, yeah.
Okay, good. Now make this distinction, y'all. Relying on technology and the technology causing conflict are kind of two different things here. We need to be able to separate that. When the technology is causing the conflict, then it is person versus technology. If people are just simply relying on technology, it's a facet of the story. Was Devin next?
Wyatt was next, and then it was me.
Okay, Wyatt, what do you got?
Thriller movie, Upgrade. A guy gets paralyzed, and they put a chip that allows him to walk. And it's revealed later that the chip is basically slowly trying to take over the body and kind of become more autonomous.
Sounds very
That's the
interesting.
word.
Upgrade is what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a cool movie. I might check that one out.
Also has some really cool cinematography tricks.
Okay, even more interested now. Devin, what do you got?
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Okay, tell us about Cloudy.
They I don't really remember the movie. All I remember is it is in the end they end up fighting the machine that's creating all this giant food.
Okay, good. The final conflict of the film, person versus technology. The technology is making giant meatballs. What do you got, Summer? Oh, we can't hear you again. Bummer. Use the chat. Somebody else. Person versus technology. Ashley.
I just have a question. So, like, for person versus technology, what if there's like a human controlling that technology, but they're using it against other humans? Like, is that still considered person versus technology?
No. Unless the technology is somewhat autonomous, then it would be person versus person, or person versus society, or person versus fate. It would be something else. Now, when the machines become autonomous, whenever they're making the moves and causing the conflict, Now it's person versus technology.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Now, that's not to say that kind of halfway autonomous technology wouldn't fit into person versus technology as well. Think the sentinels in the Matrix, right? Those weird squid, spider-looking things that cut into the ship at the end, and they have to use the electromagnetic pulse bomb to kill them off right before Neo gets out of the Matrix. That would be person versus technology, because even though they are controlled by something, they are still acting sort of on their own accord. Even though they may be programmed to do these things, there's no one actually driving them. Okay. So in the chat we have from Summer, Be More Chill. I know more about the musical, but it is a book. Jeremy takes a pill that implants a squib that helps him. It is revealed that the squib has his own ideas and wants to take over or cause people to do bad actions. Okay, yeah, absolutely. We have a form of technology kind of going rogue a bit. Very good. Anything else? Okay, excellent. So I'm gonna, well, I guess I can keep sharing screen. I'll just pull up the film. There it is. Okay. Well, actually, I do need to stop sharing screen for a minute so I can stop the recording.